Line Fever. Welcome to White Line Fever Live. And the people on YouTube, they point at the bottom of the screen and then the bell says subscribe and all that sort of stuff. So I really want you to do that as well. If you're listening on the podcast, welcome back. And it's a beautiful sunny day outside in both cities that we're in. And here we are sitting in front of our computers on Zoom. So I want to thank him for the sacrifice. From UDO, it's Sven Dirkschneider. How are you, Sven?
Pretty good. Hello, everyone. I'm doing well, enjoying the hot weather outside, actually.
As soon as we get off the phone, we'll go outside and get ourselves some sun. We are here to discuss the new album Touchdown by UDO, and bit of an American theme, Touchdown. Is it just a coincidence, or what's the story there?
I think it was, we were looking for an album title for quite some time, and I think it was in South America when we sat down at Sao Paulo airport, I guess, in some sports bar, and there was football, on the TV. So, and everyone, it got very big in Germany the last couple of years, and it was kind of a thing. Even my dad got into it, and he was like, I'm, here and then I'm watching football now. And I'm like, oh, great. So you mean soccer or you mean the American football? He was like, no, American football. So he quite got into it a bit. I'm into it. And Peter is, of course, he's living in the US. So anyway, was there on the TV. And then my dad said, that would be they said Touchdown, right? And he was like, that's the album title. Like sort of the music that we do is also, as a team, we go out on stage, like sort of a team, that plays football or whatever sport, basically. And I think it's just a really cool, catchy album title, and it also has something to do with, playing heavy metal. It's aggressive. It's, a bit rumbly, people, run into each other. You could compare it with a circle pit or whatever, or mosh pit or however you want to call it. So, yeah. And then we just said, that's it. We're just going to name it Touchdown. Why not?
Now, but yeah, so it's really interesting because I guess American football has been spreading globally very slowly for about 70 years. But now with sort of social media and fantasy sports as well is a big factor. So, and your dad, he spent so much time in America, yet he's waited till 2023 to get into the NFL. So, why do you think? What? Because I also do a sports podcast and write about sports. So, why now? What sort of grabbed you by the throat now, and why not in the past?
I think it was just like the right time at the right spot. We were just sitting there having a few beers and waiting for our flight, and so it just catched us that moment, and we thought, like, we are looking for an album title anyway. There was nothing really from the songs that we wanted to take, and it's of course not a concept album because we don't write concept albums usually. We just do song by song. Each song has its own story, and as well, we needed to get rid of this steel because, like, we had a lot of steel and metal and steel steel hammer and all that kind of stuff. So, something completely out of topic, which catched us at that moment. And then we wrote, like, right when we came back from South America, we wrote the album title, basically the song Touchdown, which is also on the album. And I think it came out great. So yeah, nothing in particular. I can't really tell why it didn't really catch the guys earlier, but as you said, they spent quite a few years in the States, but I don't know if they were interested in that kind of sport back then.
Yeah, I guess back in the day, the sort of musicians and the sports jocks were kind of separate tribes, weren't they? And the hair metal guys and the death metal guys and the thrash metal, they're all different tribes, and now everyone's kind of like, we're all older now. We get on a lot better. So how many of the new songs have you played live? You've been playing some festivals, and how none
of them. No, not yet, because Forever Free's out since June 23rd, and our next show is on July 21st, I guess. So and I don't know if it will have its live debut that day, but we would see, because we all spread out. So Peter's from the States. We are not living close to each other, so there's not that much time to rehearse. So basically we have the fixed set list now for the summer. But who knows, if we just want to jam it while we do sound check or whatever, we might throw it into the set list.
Yeah. So for a new album now, like, I mean, you know, back in the day, you would get excited about a new album. There'd be so much work go into it, and you'd be in a studio spending a fortune every day. And there'd be a publicity campaign, and you know, there'd be actual a pressing, a test pressing, and then you know, now it's so different. You've got to actually sort of concentrate so hard to give it impact, so that it means something to people. I guess so. You know, and it sounds like from some of the interviews I was listening to you is that your responsibilities within the band are quite businessy. Like you actually sent Peter his tickets when he went over to join the band, or the offer to join the band. So you've assumed some sort of business responsibilities within the band, I guess. So how do you do it? How do you kind of get some impact and make sure it means something and sticks and isn't just another thing that comes up on Spotify? You know what I mean?
I mean, first of all, I think that from album to album, we do something different. That's the first thing. You know, we don't want to come up with the same thing over and over again. That, you know, like some bands are allowed to do it, I would say. You know, you wouldn't, like when I read all these comments from when AC/DC puts out a new album, everyone's like, yeah, but that's the same. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. That should be, because it's fucking AC/DC. So they should stick to their guns, you know.
Yeah.
And we do sort of the same, but it always comes up with a different, you know, vibe, a different impression on the songs. And for instance, this album turned out to be very aggressive, which we were surprised of as well, to be honest. You know, when we listened to the first demos, we were like, wow. I mean, that, you know, sort of throw us back into the time bomb times or whatever, you know, which is great, because ever since when I joined the band, we had more of this hard rock, metal, classic heavy metal vibe going on. So the people definitely can expect a very aggressive and some sort of, you know, more progressive album from UDO. And I think that's the most important thing. If a band nowadays puts out an album, you want to hear their, you know, variety, what they're able to play and stuff like that. And I think then it can get very catchy in your ears, and you want to listen to it over and over again, because there are so many details. You know, if it would be the same over and over again, you sort of like, okay, I know these riffs, you know, just like, oh, next. But yeah, as soon as an album starts playing and it's sort of like something different in there, I want to listen through it, and, you know, hopefully some of the songs stick to your ears and you want to listen to them again. So but yeah, I think that's the main thing. We always try to you know, come up with something different.
Let's have a listen to a song. Before we go to the song, is that part of your role though? Do you try to adopt the ears of a bit of an outsider, so you take a step back and say, we need a bit?
No, I mean, everyone is involved in the songwriting. You know, it starts from our guitarists, Andrey and me. I mean, Peter obviously wasn't involved in the songwriting process for this album. He put his stuff in there with his bass lines when he recorded the album, but he wasn't part of the songwriting. But we are young musicians, you know, so everyone has their influence, and I think that's really cool for my dad as well, because, you know, he sort of gets to listen to different ideas, and he's very, you know, he's not like, oh no, I don't want to try this, you know. He goes in there, he tries it, and, you know, if it works, it's great. If not, then we just skip it, you know. Next idea. Welcome
back to White Line Fever. Our second part of our interview with Sven from Dirkschneider, and if you're watching, thanks for not turning us off. And now I actually, with the interview is divided in three for reasons we cut up the audio, but I actually three specific sort of things I wanted to talk to you about. And the one thing is in the interviews that you talked about Andrey, your guitarist, and there's a song on there, I Fight for Your Right, which is about Ukraine, Russia war. And you mentioned that, you know, he's been through hell and it's changed him, but I'm Googling him, I'm Googling Ukraine, I can't actually find the story. I don't know, you know, his story in relation to the war. So I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about it.
Of course, yeah, sure, no problem.
What can you tell us?
I mean, you know, that was actually while we were writing this album, right after COVID. I mean, the war hit Ukraine, and so Andrey is basically, he's from Russia, but, you know, living in Ukraine with his wife and his family in Chernihiv. So it's basically the triangle where they came in. So when we first found out about this whole thing going on, we tried to contact him, you know, of course, and he wasn't responding. So there was like sort of a few days or weeks even where we didn't know, is he alive? You know, didn't know. And then finally we got some reply that, you know, they're basically sitting in their basement, you know, and trying to survive. So there was like, I think it was going for a month that every day when we received a message from him, everyone was on the phone the whole day. Like, did you hear anything from him? And as soon as we heard something, we were like, okay, good, he's still alive. So, and then there came that time where of course he said they need to get out because it's getting worse and worse and worse. So they need to move. But there was not that time slot, that time frame where they were able to leave because everything was fucked up. I mean, there were troops everywhere. The roads are fucked up. Everything is destroyed. So luckily at one day one day he wrote me that they are able to get like a, let's say, minivan. And then they drove towards the Polish border, and our producer Matis and I, when he wrote us that they're going to be there the other day, we just went into the car and we went to Poland and picked him up with his family. Of course, I mean, that threw us big time. Like talking about it, you know, it shivers myself and I get goosebumps because it's horrible and devastating to see that happen to someone that is so close to you. And then of course we have a big relationship with these countries. I mean, we toured Russia a lot, we toured Ukraine a lot. Everything of that is gone now, obviously, which is, you know, doesn't mean anything. There's other problems that are way bigger, and you know, we just can't tour there. I mean, but it's sad for the people that something happens like that, and you know, in these times. And so yeah, we were really like, I don't know, frustrated. I don't know if that's the right word, but like we stopped touring. There was COVID, we couldn't tour. Then, you know, my house got flooded in 2021, and now Andrey's sitting there in a war, and all of that while we write an album. So of course, I mean, that maybe is also the reason why this album turned out to be so aggressive, you know, because we definitely needed to have some output of our emotions, you know, and that's why we came up with such aggressive and fast songs. And yeah, you know, also like lyric wise, very, you know, motivating as well. We try to always, you know, motivate people to say, stop that bullshit, you know, it's stupid, like that we need to go through something like that, or people need to go through something like that. And when I went to that Polish border, it broke my heart, you know, like to see people leaving with just a plastic bag and 2 kids on their shoulders. Stuff like that you don't get to see, you know, that often, only on the TV, but you always think like, oh, that's far away. But hell no, it's not far away, you know, it's right here. It's that's what we are facing, you know. And it's really sad that the world is still, yeah, such a fucked up place, to be honest.
Yeah. Was he actually living in an occupied part of the Ukraine? So were the Russian troops actually occupying the area where he lived?
I mean, they were destroying the fucking place. Yeah, I mean, there was like, you know, I always like it sounds so stupid, but that's what it is. Like, that's the stories my grandma told me, like when I was younger, you know, that when they got bombed in Cologne, she was living in Cologne during Second World War. So there's not a difference in between, you know, like Andrey was sitting there for a month and they got bombed, and there were troops and there were fights like on the street. Like if you leave your home, you know, you could die from a fucking machine gun, you know. So yeah, I mean, he was like luckily not affected directly, but I know, for instance, that a lot of people he knew from this city where he was living in died during that fucking war. So yeah, it's very, very bad.
Yeah. We will play that song. By the time we play this in audio, we'll be able to use it. So we will play that song. But can I just ask you, as his bandmate, how, you know, it's affected him emotionally, and how, as a friend, and also, you know, being Russian and all that sort of stuff, and living in Ukraine, obviously would complicate things more for him emotionally. So I guess I'll just ask you that, and then we'll play that song.
I mean, you know, to be honest, it always has been a little difficult for him to be a Russian citizen, especially with the name he has. I mean, Andrey Smirnov, like, you know, that name exists, I don't know how many times in Russia. So, I mean, it's also this fact, you know, that sometimes bothers me a lot. Like, he would be the one who sits down at a border control, you know, like not the Germans or not the English people or whoever, you know, it's him, the Russian guy, you know, of course, you know, we take him to the side and we're going to talk to him. So first of all, it you know, it ever has been like that. And then the war, of course, I mean, to be honest, I think it's not that easy and not possible to get over it, you know, in such a short time. So he's still in the process of trying to, you know, put it somewhere. I don't know. And he puts it out, of course, in his music, and you can definitely hear that, I think. But I mean, I think he's just lucky that he's just happy that him and his family is alive, you know. That's first of all. Secondly, now they built their new life here in Germany. So I think for him it's sort of good that he's in contact with us even more. It's not that far away. We can work, you know, easier and stuff like that. So of course it has also some plus points, but I mean, you know, if you leave your home, like, yeah, I mean, he just left everything behind, you know, and I couldn't imagine that. I don't want to imagine it. It's horrible, you know. And but yeah, I mean, he got very sensitive as well. And when we talk a lot and we try to be there for him, and that's what we did when all that stuff started. So that's what we try to do, and whenever he needs us, we will be there, you know, just as friends and not as you know, working partners or whatever. So I think that's as much as we can do at that point. And I just hope that him and his family can, you know, sort of leave it behind at some point of their lives, you know.
Okay. Welcome back to White Line Fever, third and final part of our interview with Sven from UDO. And this section, I want to talk about, I guess, maybe a less serious subject, but still maybe a little serious. There's a very unmetal band from Australia called Little River Band. And they had a song called Son of a Famous Man, right? And I think most of us will never know what it's like to grow up as the son or daughter of a famous man or famous woman. And so I'm asking in this section for you to give us a little bit of an insight into what it's like. How old were you when you realized that people knew your dad who your dad didn't know?
Probably that was during my time in school, you know, when everyone sits down and you do the typical, like, so tell us something about it, you know, what like your parents do for work and what do they do for a living, and you just sit there and you say, oh, my dad is a musician, and they go like, oh, he's a musician. So that's the first question, like, you know, oh, what kind of musician? And then you go, yeah, he's playing heavy metal and he's a singer, you know. And then they Google him. You know,
there was no Google. There was. You're so young that there was Google when you were in school.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So and then they would find out, and other people would say, oh, I know him. You know, I listened to Accept, you know, throughout my whole youth and stuff like that. So I think that was the first point where I realized, okay, that's something serious that people know about it. Yeah, that must have been in school. Yeah.
And what impact does it have on you? Because, you know, little kids can be mean, and also little kids can be arrogant. And, you know, if they think that they're better than someone else, like their dad's famous or their mum's rich or they come from the royal family or whatever, then they tend to think that makes them better. And if you're a little kid. So was there a temptation to sort of for your head to get big because no,
not really. I must say that my dad always, you know, he was never the guy who would say like, oh, I'm Udo Dirkschneider and, you know, I'm the big rock star and everyone knows me. He never was like that. So I was never raised like that as well. So I always been part of my community, you know, in school or when I was older and stuff like that. And I always try to remember myself like just, stay on the ground, you're just a human being as well, and of course I play music, and I can be very, very lucky and grateful to had this like that I had the opportunity to join him as well. I never thought about joining the band, like I was making my way. I was going to school. I did my apprenticeship like as a media operator, very usual life. And on the side, I started to work in the music industry as a drum tech, so of course I knew some people, and people are always looking for new people. So I got a few calls, and they asked me if I would like to join them and go on tour. So I did that. And at some point in my life, I decided, okay, I want to do this full time. And then there was the point where my dad looked for a new drummer for the band. And then that's when he asked me. But no, I mean, I always, and still, still is, I just try to be as human and as normal as possible, and but no, it never affected me back then, and not now.
Do you find yourself thinking a lot about the relationship between the fans and the band and the art in the middle, kind of, where people kind of think that the music, especially with your dad, I guess, getting pestered in the street or whatever. I went on that Monsters of Rock cruise, and he couldn't just lay in the sun without someone asking for his autograph or a selfie or whatever. Right. So, do you find yourself thinking about why people invest so much in a person? I guess because their art brings back memories, and their art, they connect the art to so many things in their life, and sometimes they're not sane around the person as a result. I mean, do you have to sort of rationalize it in your head to kind of deal with it? You know what I mean? Like just how, and especially if you're dealing with the business of things, you're actually sort of turning something that's very emotional into a metric, into a bunch of numbers, into whether we should go to that town, whether we should play, how big venue we should play, and stuff like that. So how do you kind of, as a kid, seeing that at close range, how do you process it? How do you understand it? That sort of fanaticism that people have,
That's something that still fascinates me, to be very honest. I'm not that person who dies for someone, like, I mean, I love people, I love musicians, I love music, I love, I don't know, actors or whatever. And I have my people where I say, wow, that's such a cool person, or he has such a character or whatever. But I don't know, I think that's something that differs from back then to today as well. I think today people are more like, yeah, that's this guy, okay, cool. So I might get an autograph, but they're not that fanatic about that fact that there's some. But we meet people, they shake, they're shaking, asking for a photograph, and it still fascinates me. I don't know, but if a person or a voice or an actor, could be anything, had such a big impact on your life, and it sort of, decided your route which you took back in the day, then I sort of understand why people are so excited about it when they meet him and stuff like that. But back in the day, I must say, as a kid, I mean, I was traveling with him a lot whenever I had time. We went with my sister as well. And for us, it was just normal. There was nothing fancy about it. Like, I remember when I went with him to Motorhead to visit the guys in Düsseldorf. And I was just, I was very interested in drums. So obviously, and he just said, yeah, you go and sit behind Mickey, and Mickey was super cool and said, yeah, you could sit behind my drum kit. So I was just sitting there watching the show, being like super overwhelmed by the fact that there's someone playing drums, but I wasn't really concentrated on the fact that this is Mickey D and Motorhead. I didn't know what it meant, I ended up in Slipknot's tour bus back in 2005 at Graspop, playing Xbox with Joey Jordison, and at that time it was like, yeah, I'm playing Xbox with someone, and he's playing drums. So, I didn't really. For my sister, it must have been a bit different because she's 5 years older. So she was, at that time, she was like already in her teenage years, and she was a big fan of Slipknot, and she was going like, oh God, I get an autograph and I can take photos and stuff like that. But I was so young at that time that I didn't really realize, and now it just got part of my life. Of course, that's my passion. That's what I want to do. That's the most important thing. And then comes, of course, the business side, which is, I mean, we do it for a living. So, of course, you need to take it serious in the end. And it's that we all live from money that falls off from the sky, So, I mean, we are earning our money, our living with it. So, of course, when you grow up, of course, you grow with your with the tasks that you have, and I took over quite a few things within the band, handling production stuff, and traveling became a thing, and whenever we needed, I'm sort of the tour manager, like when we don't have a tour manager with us sometimes, then I take over. I'm just I was always very good in organizing. Let's put it this way. Had it with my bands as well. In my youth, I had a few bands, and I was like always the guy who organized everything, and that became sort of my thing, and I like it. So why not?
Yeah, Sven, it's been an awesome interview, mate. I really appreciate your time and your honesty.